Hello, my name is Nezzy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a MAM, or a Make Anything machine in Shapes. Now, a MAM is required to advance levels in free play mode, so if you haven't beaten the base game, this is going to serve as your spoiler warning. Pause the video, go finish the game, then come back and watch this if you want help on making your own MAM to advance these free play states. This is your final warning. Okay, so after you enter free play mode, the game is going to start randomly generating shapes for you to create. And so it's not practical to tear down your factory and rebuild a new thing every single time. So we have to make this MAM that's going to create all these shapes for us and send them into the hub for us. So the first step is going to be using a lot of signal analyzing. So the hub is going to send the signal of the shape that you need to create. I am past level 50, so my shapes are 3-tiered instead of 2-tiered. That's what you'll get when you first start doing this. So we bring this shape all the way up to the area where we're going to build our first one, which we already have here. First thing we have to do is unstack the top layer. So if there's only 2, you're going to get the top one unstacked here, and the bottom one will be sent down to the bottom, which is basically an exact copy of what I'm about to show you. Since I have 3, I have to unstack this again later. Now after we have unstacked our first shape, and we do this with the virtual unstacker from this tab right here. Virtual unstacker. So now that we have our shape, we need to analyze it. We do that by using this little microscope called the Shape Analyzer. Problem with this thing is that it only analyzes the top right corner of the shape that you send a signal in for. So this one will come in, and the top right corner is a white square. So it analyzes it, and it spits out a square signal and a white signal. And we're going to use those to call the correct things, which we're then going to paint the shape and then restack it. So now we have to rotate it once in order to analyze the next one, which would be the top left. But now we've moved it to the top right, and we analyze that, and we get this shape, which is a pinwheel, and magenta. Then we rotate it again, and it just so happens that the bottom left square, or section of this shape, is the same as the top right one. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes they're symmetrical, sometimes they're not. So we need to make sure we can cover all of our bases for that. So after we rotate it the third time, we do one more rotation to get that final segment, and those are all split apart. So the first thing we need to do is call the correct shape. Right here I have all 4 shape signals coming through, a square, a pinwheel, a square, and a pinwheel, all the way over to this little area where I've cut the signal apart using the virtual cutter, which you can also find in this tab, and a rotator to get just the top right segment of each of those shapes. And that's sent over to this little shape segment creating area, utilizing the most handy, I think, machine we have here, which is the filter. So the filter, if you put a shape signal into it and it does not match the one that's coming into the input, it'll get kicked to the rejection side, which is where that red X is. If this exactly matches what's coming in, it'll allow it through. Important thing to note about this filter is that if you send it a 1 signal, it'll also just allow things through it. That's going to come into play later when we look at the painter. But for now, I have 4 different circle segment creators, and this is where you have to pay attention to the speed of your machines. My cutters can process 4.3 items per second. This shape that gives me circles has 3 segments of that, so it means we kind of get to multiply this by 3, which is going to be about 13 or so, which means we only need 2 of these and a couple rotations to get a full conveyor belt's worth of that segment. Same thing with this. We have 3 segments of squares in this shape that's just conveniently near here, and that means we only need 2 cutters. Down here we have the star shapes. This shape only has 2 of those segments, so we actually need 3 of those cutters to get a full conveyor belt. And then the pinwheel only has 1 segment in this shape, so we ended up needing 4 cutters to get that. But that gives us a full conveyor belt of each shape, and then this array of filters will only allow it through if it exactly matches. So this is our second quadrant, which was the top left, remember? So that one's being allowed through, and then the one on the opposite side, the bottom right, which is number 4, is also being let through. We have no star shapes in our shape that we want to create, so none of those are being allowed through, and we have no circles, so none of those are being allowed through. When you have the correct shapes coming in, they will be piped over to the painting array. But first we're going to go over the mixers. Now this design for the mixer is quite complicated, but it's the most efficient design I could find. This allows it to take up just this amount of space and only use one conveyor belt of each color, rather than the more typical way it involves 4 conveyor belts of each color, and having all those resources together just clutters everything out. So I'm not going to get too in depth on how exactly this works, but as you can see, we've got a lot of filters coming through, and then if you look at the circuit side, it gets a little complicated. I know. What's basically happening here is that we have this color signal, which in this case is magenta. It is being fed into these top 3 filters, which if they the signal coming in matched any of the 3 primary colors, they would just be allowed through. So we don't have to worry about mixing them at all. But in this case, it's magenta, so none of them are being allowed through. Instead, this is running. Now, this is quite clever, I think. Again, I didn't design this, but the idea is that if this bottom color is allowed through, then this little speedometer thing will activate the filter and let the second color go through. But since it's not, it's kicking the middle color up to the top. And it's doing the same thing on this side. Because the blue is not activating this signal, it's not allowing this filter to activate, so it's kicking the red out, and then that's being brought back up into the second conveyor belt, which is where they get mixed together. If you needed white, for example, as you can see, green is being allowed through, so it's activating the filter, which lets blue through, and that being activated lets red through. That only happens if you have white. Then the colors get mixed, and they get brought up to this other set of filters, which will only be on if the color is white. This little equals thing from the set of things you can do, actually it's the equal sign here. It sends out a 1 signal if the signal that you're analyzing exactly matches the one on the other side. So we have a constant here, which you can change to be whatever you want. For example, this is white. And so we're seeing, does this signal equal white? And because it does, this 1 comes through. That turns on all the filters we need, and then allows the mixed color here, which is cyan, to get kicked to the other side. So this 0 here, we have a 1 signal coming in and we're flipping it with a NOT gate. The 0 is not letting these filters be on, so none of the cyans are coming through. They're getting kicked to the last mixer, which is where the reds are being sent, and then the white comes out there. On the magenta side, we don't need all 3 colors, just the 2. So we're making sure that the 2 colors we do need are going to the first array of mixers, and then these filters are activated, so they're just allowing them to pass, and then they're being sent onward. I know it's really confusing, but if you just copy it like this, and then copy it like this, the important thing to remember is these colors, these constant color signal generators right here, those might be different for you depending on the order of your colors in here. So you should have green coming in first, then blue, then red. If you mix them up, you're going to have to change these a little bit. So because our signal coming in is magenta, that's going to activate this one, being a 1, which allows the filter to go through. Yellow and magenta both need red, so this is like your red side. On the middle one, it's cyan and magenta. Those both need blue, so it's allowing blue to go through. And then if it were cyan or yellow, then it would allow for green to come through. But because it matches both magentas, we get red here and blue here. Okay, now that we've got the right color coming through, we need to paint it. So that brings us to our painting array. Now, just like with the cutters on the shapes, we look at the speed of our painters, and we see that mine is 2.9. So we do a little bit of math to see that we need 6 of them to exceed the 17.6 we get from the maximum speed of our conveyor belts. Now, the thing about this array is that it's what's called a smart array, or like a smart painter. And all that means is that it will only paint if there's colors to paint with. If you, for example, don't need to paint your shape, it'll still come in through here. But then this left side of the painting array will fill up. It'll back all the way up to this kind of greenish section of the storage thing. And if that gets backed up, then it's going to output to the other side and send it down this other conveyor belt, completely bypassing the painting array. And then you just join them up together to make sure they go to the stacking array, which we'll talk about here in a second. Now, the problem that I've run into sometimes is that if you don't have filters to check to make sure the thing you're making is correct, you're going to end up with a bunch of things mixing together For example, the painting array might overflow a little bit. It might take a little too long. Then you're going to get overflowing shapes coming out this side, which actually might happen. Let me see if it works here. Yeah, you see we're getting one square every once in a while that just comes out the side. And that's going to mix in with the rest of them that are correct and end up clogging up some things. So we don't want that to happen. Which is why we need filters almost everywhere. So this filter is making sure that the painted shape is the correct one. And after we get, we separated the signal earlier, we get this gray square and then the white color. You can use the virtual painter to paint it the right color. So then we can tell this filter, if what's coming out of there is not a white square, you're not going to let it happen. You're going to kick it into the trash can that's right here. And then just to be safe, we have the exact same filter here at the end, just to make sure if anything does happen to slip through, then it also gets kicked into the trash can. We're not clogging up this conveyor belt here. So that whole system, calling a shape, calling a color, painting them in the painting array, that's going to need to happen 4 times. So you need 4 of each one because there's 4 sections to any given shape. And once you have all 4 of those in, mine's a little awkwardly shaped because of this was the first one I built, so it's not the most efficient space-wise. So you have some useless wires just hanging about. We need to stack them all together. Now, when I built this, I was under the impression there would be some gaps in various places, but so far that's not happened yet. But this system can account for that. So just like with the painting array, we have both sides, or both shapes coming in here, and onto either side of the stacker. Our stackers are 2.17 per second, so we need quite a few of them. There are 8 here in order to get a full conveyor belt. Then when they're stacked together, they get kicked over through these tunnels into another conveyor belt, which will then be checked. So once we have like our white square signal here, we have the magenta pinwheel coming in, and we rotate it to be the top left. So you can see right there. So 3 rotations makes it top left. And then the virtual stacker, which you get from this section, will stack it into the correct shape. And we can use that to check the filter to make sure it's the right one, because if it's not, we're going to kick it to the side, not let it through. If by chance there didn't need to be a top left section and there would be a gap there, you would connect this conveyor belt on the overflow side of the stacker up into here, like this. So that way this thing would back up, and when it backs all the way up into the greenish primary output of the storage, it'll forget about that and go down the other side, and then it completely skips the stacking arrays. Again, so far that has not happened to me, and based on other videos I've seen, I don't think it can. But just in case, that's why those are here. After we get these 2 quadrants stacked, we're gonna bring in, remember the 3rd quadrant was the white squares. Again, we pipe those in and we stack them with the shape we already stacked to send to the filter to make sure it's correct. These come into the stacking array and they're all being stacked on the right quadrant. And one more time, do it all again for the last section. So we have our actually, we don't have to check for that at the very end because that gets checked up here. All right, so just like before, instead of stacking the other signal here and rotating it back together, I've just taken the original shape signal, because at this point, after all 4 stacking arrays, it should be done. And check it one last time. If it's not the right one, it'll get kicked into the trash can and then move on. I have disabled the input so that the shape isn't changing. That's why this is backed up. But then it sends it all the way through to what we need it to be. I'm actually going to upgrade my conveyor belts while we're sitting here. No, I'm not. I'm going to upgrade just one of these at a time. Okay, so now that we've created one complete shape, we have to do it all again. So we're going to copy every single one of these components that we have here, feed in the correct color and shape inputs. So we'll have to have a whole new set of shape creators, which is what I've got right here. And the new filters, it's the exact same layout, just somewhere else. In this case, it's layer 2, which is this white and cyan circle. So we're only bringing in circle shapes. And we have white and cyan on all those, and those are being stacked just like we did the first one, and then double checked here. And then these get fed into a single stacking array, which is just like we had before, except for some reason I only have 6, which is probably fine. Because once those are all stacked, we're going to send them back out. And then if this is your first level, this comes all the way over into the hub, which is what I had here. And it'll get filtered again. You want to make sure it gets filtered again just in case. And then it gets sent through and delivered, and you've completed the level. I have 3 layers. So I have a whole another section here. And this one is much more efficient, where I have the 4 filters and the painting array and everything all here in the same spot. So if you'd like to copy this, I will go through it real slowly. This is our, here, let me show you the shape analyzer here. So this is the original signal. I have unstacked it twice. So this is the bottom layer that we need. It gets analyzed, top right one, rotated, analyzed, rotated, analyzed, rotated, analyzed. So all 8 of these wires here are the 4 quadrants we need. The first one comes in here, and it says circle, so it only allows the circle conveyor belt to come through. And then the signal says cyan. It gets painted here. This fancy universal mixer mixes the correct color. So we have here, right? And then we paint it the right color. We send that signal in to this filter just to make sure that we don't get any overflow. Then it comes out the bottom. We double check it here. And then into the stacking array, which is laid out the exact same way, just a little bit more efficiently. If you didn't know, the blue wires and the green wires will not connect to each other if you lay them side by side. That allows for this stuff to be so close together. And that's pretty much it. After you have all three shapes stacked and fed into the array, which is the 3rd stacking array here. So the signal, or the shape we made earlier with the 2 layers, is fed all the way over into here, stacked with the bottom shape, and that comes down. It's checked one final time before it is fed directly into the hub. So I'm going to connect this, and it should activate because of the speed we have. It's going to advance the level, and then you're going to notice everything stop for a minute. A lot of the efficiency from this machine, so look at that. A lot of the efficiency from these machines comes from having a full conveyor belt and being able to clear out the old stuff as soon as the signal changes. So here we have 3 different shapes again. So let's take a look at the top layer, which is that shape. See that top left one right there? That is this one up here. So you can kind of watch it. See, it's clearing out the white circles from the shape before, not letting them through. Now the green ones are getting through. Same thing here. It's got to clear out the garbage at the bottom. I've tried it with trash cans on the bottom here, and it's not good in case you have a gap. You want this to be able to back up, which means you can't put trash cans at the end. That would clear it out a little bit faster, but it's no big deal. So that caught up pretty quick, and now it's sending out the correct shape. Now we can look at the second one, which beat the first one here. Obviously, all the signals update at the same time, so all 3 of the factories end up creating the shape at the same time. This one's just a lot closer to the stacking array, so it's done first. Then those will be sent all the way over to my 3rd one, into its stacking array, which this one hasn't quite made it yet. Actually, look at that. We have a problem. What is the problem here? We're missing a shape. There's no shape coming through. For some reason... That's interesting. How did that happen? Oh, it got stuck somehow. That's really weird. That might have been from loading in. So how we can fix that is if we get rid of this and we just allow this to trash itself until it's giving us the correct thing, we'll put that filter back. There we go. Oops. Look at that. You get to watch some real-time troubleshooting. That's the kind of thing you have to look out for. Remember, when you troubleshoot, you identify the problem and you work your way backwards to see where the problem actually lies. In this case, I'm not sure exactly how that happened. I think it was a loading issue. When I loaded the level in, it might have been like that, because this is all correct. So, I'm not sure. But, that being all fixed, we're now getting everything to flow through. And you can see we've already started delivering those to the hub. Given enough time, this will max out as a full conveyor belt. If you build it the exact same way. Now, what's going to happen later is that this is going to get so annoyingly fast. Like, it's going to want at least 200 per second. Oh, this is a good chance to show you the gray one. So, the bottom layer here has gray and red. And you can see it's... Oh, this is the wrong... Yeah, you see no color is coming through on this one. So this shape backed all the way up, and now it's going into the overflow side. And that's the gray one that we care about. And that fixed itself pretty quick. So again, you just have to wait for the garbage that you don't want to get filtered out. It's going to take a little bit of time mostly because of the moving things from one place to another. But clearly we got the shape that we wanted. The gray shape should have been extremely easy. Yeah, that was pretty quick. It's the top one that takes forever. Just because of the pure distance that things have to move to travel. But as you can see, I haven't messed with anything else. Aside from fixing that issue, I haven't changed a single thing. I'm going to let this sit here for a few minutes and sped up so you can just see the levels advance until I get to the fourth layer, in which case I'll have to build another section. There might be another video where I show you how to do what I call like advanced distribution, which is just a way to kind of trick the game into counting you delivering like 100 per second when you're not producing that many. Just involves some overflow stuff. Not a huge deal. If you want to scale up your factory that high, you obviously can. If this helped you out, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel. I've got all sorts of different guides and gameplays that you can watch and hopefully be entertained by. Once again, my name is Nezzy, and I will see you as Barrett when Shapes 2 comes out. Thanks for watching.